Good afternoon. My name is Aliya Ismagilova and this is news of Kazan Federal University. When Kazan Federal University only included in the race for the world rankings, it was clear that the university expects major changes. To improve its competitiveness, Kazan Federal University had not only strengthened exciting research areas, but also opened new ones. Moreover, many of them, including engineering direction, literally had to start from scratch. Upscale engineering staff is one of the success factors of the real economy. Especially they were needed in Russia at the turn of the centuries. At the beginning of the 2000s, the shortage of engineers in the country has reached catastrophic proportions because developing capitalism unwittingly became the reason that in factories simply there was no one to work. That's why students didn't go for engineering professions in universities. Therefore, once the rich tradition of engineering education has been forgotten, but not for a long time. With the help of the President of the Russian Federation, training of engineers in the Russian universities was resumed. Kazan Federal University accepted this task too. Rector of Kazan Federal University Ilshad Gafurov showed the initiative, and over the years his position on this issue only strengthened. It would be nice if the direction connected with the organization of various industries gradually grow around our university. The city should see the benefit of having such a university on its territory as soon as possible. Engineering direction in Kazan Federal University is a lot of innovative projects developed by several leading institutes of the university. But behind them is a fundamental part. Scientists here are realizing forward-looking ideas in time formulas, equations and the maximum of prototypes. But bringing to mind the project and their conclusion on the conveyor is engaged in the Engineering Institute. About the vector of development of this structural unit and the prospects of projects that are carried out here recently was discussed at the rector's seminars, and special attention at the seminar was paid to problematic sides of engineering projects within the university.
There is a conflict of interests of science and business, because science works in the interest of learning the world and business has a benefit interests.
We must bring the development into the industry. Another thing is that they are not in demand, and this is where it becomes obvious why this is all done within the university. We have a fundamental development and a small business that are engaged in production, but there remains a gap between them, and our task is to support for the project from concept to industrial production. To solve this problem within the framework of the Engineering Institute was established Center for Technology Transfer. It has already attracted the attention of the real economy to multiple projects of Kazan Federal University scientists, in particular to the unique technology of processing of oil pollution. The essence of our technology is that we grow certain strains of microorganisms which are subsequently neutralized with oil dirt. Moreover, they are under the effect of impurity oil and its products and wastewater and soil and oil spills in the air of oil rings. The effectiveness of this technology is 95%. And it's just 2 hours of application, while standard treatment facilities in large industrial enterprises filtered wastewater are all 18 and 20 hours. As it is recognized by the developers, the technology of processing of oil pollution has no analogues in the world. The microorganisms are used in wastewater treatment, but only biological component of this technology has been derived. Scientists of Kazan Federal University have invented installation as a particular methodology. All this has already been tried out on the other largest industrial enterprises in Tatarstan, factory organic synthesis, and is currently taken into service in several Russian refineries. There is interest in the development from foreign companies, which appeared after the success of the research group at the international exhibition in Brussels. In addition to this prestigious award in the key to the unique technology are a dozen diplomas from various exhibitions and forums. The plans of the research group is manufacturing plants as well as strains of microorganisms. This may seem strange, but the name of Kazan from ancient Bulgars is translated as a pot. On the other hand, there is nothing strange about it. During thousands of years' history, thousands of people of different nationalities and religions came in Kazan and surprisingly live peacefully nowadays too. This is a phenomenon that without exaggeration became the subject of hundreds of scientific studies both in Kazan and far beyond its borders. Significant contribution to the study of this issue was made by scientists of Kazan Federal University. Kazan School of Oriental Studies is the strongest not only in Russia, but throughout the world. It is admired and taken as an example, and huge success for this belongs to the Orientalists of Kazan Federal University. One of them is Mirkasim Usmanov. A few days ago, the great scientist would have turned 80 years old. In honor of this event in Kazan Federal University was held an international conference, the Turkic Muslim World, Identity, Heritage and Prospects of Studying. To honor the memory of his teacher, mentor, and a confederate gathered dozens of eminent scholars from all over the planet. Someone was lucky to meet him personally, and someone grew up on his books and monographs that have been translated into dozens of languages. But all, without exception, are connected with admiration to Kazan scientists' contribution to the development of the world Oriental studies.
I think that Kazan is one of the most important centers of Islam, certainly in Russia and in Eurasia. And I'm very happy to see that Kazan has again become a center of Islamic studies and Oriental studies, the place that it already had and deserved in the 19th century.
Worldwide recognition of Mir Qasim Usmanov and his fellow Orientalists once again demonstrates that Kazan Federal University has very rich tradition in Oriental studies. And there are many assumptions. One of them is the geographical position of the city. After conquering Kazan in 1552, Ivan IV literally opened a window to the east, and the fallen capital of the Kazan Khanate became a place where two religions, Islam and Christianity, touched. This subsequently gave ground for the appearing of the School of Oriental Studies at the University of Kazan.
Well, Tatar civilization is an integral part of so-called Turkish Muslim civilization. First of all, our language, our culture belongs to a great group of Turkish nations.
Speaking about assumptions, we can't forget about rich material for research. Kazan Library is rich in various Oriental manuscripts and books, including religious texts. Many of them are of great rarity and therefore worth their weight in gold. A rich collection of wisdom of the East is in Kazan Federal University. A true gem of this collection can be called the edition of the Quran, the holy book of all Muslims. This Quran was published in 1803, and the Asian publishing press of Catherine II moved by that time from St. Petersburg to Kazan. It became the first canonical edition of the Quran in the Muslim world, and this way to publish was later borrowed by many Muslim states. Our edition of the Quran is very appreciated in the Muslim world. This is evidenced by at least that in 2005, at the initiative of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the Quran of 1803 year was reprinted here in this beautiful cover. This was done in order to emphasize the value of this edition of the Quran in the Muslim world, since it became the model of all other publications all over the world. Incidentally, Kazan Quran of 1803 is a huge rarity. In Russia remains just simply one copy, and it is in the library of Kazan Federal University. Kazan Quran is in many major libraries of the world. At that time, the appearance of this publication was a significant contribution to the world of Tatars in Muslim culture, so it often becomes the object of attention of science. Kazan Quran text feature is its aesthetic calligraphy, its brevity and ease of reading. The most important thing for Muslim is not to make mistakes reading the Quran. There are many explanations how one or another letter should be read, where there should be pause, and etc. Another feature of Kazan Quran is the distribution of the text pages. The fact that Arabic words can be divided, and the main difficulty in the publication of the Quran is to avoid the transfer of words from one line to another. We can say that Quran publishers in Kazan give a master class as it can be done. It is coincidence or not, but after the reissue of the Quran in Kazan in 2005, Orientalism in Kazan Federal University breathed deeply. It's not just about Islamic studies. The university started the study of the culture and history of the eastern states, and among students increased interest in Oriental languages taught by native speakers. And that's not all. In September this year will be 11th International Congress of Social Sciences of the Turkic World. Organizers are expecting great success here.
Which foreign universities Kazan Federal University began to cooperate with? What interesting guests visited Kazan Federal Universities? How to learn Spanish, easy and fun? About all this we will tell you in our brief information overview of the most interesting events. My name is Olga Danilova. Let's start. Kazan Federal has already established partnership with several universities of Finland. University of Helsinki and University of Turku. Now this list was supplemented by the University of Eastern Finland, where scientist of Kazan Federal University, Rashid Ginatulin, has already worked. He directs the Laboratory of Cell Biology of Institute of Molecular Studies named after Virtanen of University of Eastern Finland. He explores the neurophysiological mechanism of migraine and seeks new treatment guidelines. Currently, cooperation between the two universities is expanding. The purpose of the visit was to establish the cooperation with Kazan Federal University on medical direction.
We actually, first of all, we have one professor in our university from your university, from Kazan, and he's doing excellent work. And we also know more generally that Kazan University is a very high-level university in Russia and also one of these federal universities. So we are very interested in having or looking forward some collaboration and cooperation with your university.
Studying Kazan Federal University is filled with opportunities of self-improvement and expansion of your horizons. For this, there were lectures of top foreign professors. In Kazan Federal University's professors from the different fields had lectures. Professor of Sociology of California University Roger Brubaker has recently visited Kazan Federal University. He is modern classic of study of nationalism and ethnicity. His ideas were widely discussed by researchers of migration, nationalism, nationality, ethnics worldwide. He is widely known outside the series of sociology.
To have a good-sized audience here, I thought the questions were quite interesting. Of course, the issues that I was discussing in my lecture are important here in Tatarstan, language and religion. So I'm very happy to have had this chance to speak.
Meeting other cultures is an important part of education. It makes the learning process interesting and entertaining. It broadens the mind. In April, the students of Institute of Mass Communication and Social Sciences had a week internship in the US state Iowa. It was not just visiting different types of media editors. It was like touching the other culture in its wild variety. After arrival, participants of exchange program with College Hawaii, USA Waterloo got certificates of training. Also, American students come to Russia to break down stereotypes and to meet with our culture.
Of course, every stereotype about Russia in America, are very common. Bears on unicycles, mostly Russians being very cold and not smiling. But this is not true because everywhere we go, everybody's always smiling and being very accepting of everybody else.
American students had an extensive program where were also talk shows. During transmission, the students of Kazan Federal University and students of Hawkeye College of State Iowa were able to communicate and discuss the difference of educational approaches in America, as well as to share their impression on the trip. Foreign languages are always taught at the Kazan Federal University since the foundation in 1804. Today in Kazan Federal University you can study English, French, Spanish, German, Chinese, Japanese, Korean and Turkish. Kazan Federal University does everything to make educational process varied and interesting. For studying languages in Kazan Federal University, there are many events, including festivals of language, language contests and competition, multicultural lectures and conferences. The concert of Spanish song was an outstanding event in May. It has been held at the university for 10 years. This event brings together not only Spanish learners, but also those who are interested in Spanish culture. The concert was organized by the Spanish Education and Culture Center of Kazan Federal University.
I think that it is very important to hold such kind of events in Kazan Federal University because it's an additional motivation for students and for everybody who wants to study Spanish. They try themselves not only at learning foreign languages but also in other ways. They are participating in different contests, cuisine contests, poetry contests, song contests, and they can just express themselves through these contests. And this is some kind of atmosphere for Spanish community created by students and by the teachers and by the native speakers, and they all can communicate inside this atmosphere and this community.
Special role in the study of languages, of course, plays the study and immersion in the culture of country. Despite the fact that Spanish is the second most popular in the world, in Kazan it is still considered as exotic. However, interest in it is growing every day.
Perhaps no one university in Russia doesn't have a large number of diverse museums as at Kazan Federal University. This is a priceless asset of the university with unique collection to help visitors and students to back in time to acquire new knowledge. All museums of the university have international status. Information about the museum is contained in the international catalog and directions. This Institute of International Relations, History and Oriental Studies, which traces its history to 1804 with the founding of the Imperial University of Kazan, has two museums. Now we will tell you about one of them. Ethnographic Museum of Kazan Federal University is one of the oldest museums in the humanities in Russia. Basics of the museum was laid in 1815, and since then the museum's collection is constantly replenished. Here, on an area of about 200 square meters, there are thousands of exhibits describing the culture and life of the world population. Walking in the hall of ethnography of Kazan-Volga peoples can feel yourself in the 19th century. There are exhibits of the main ethnic group living in the Volga region: Finne, Orgic, Turks and Slavs. In Finno-Orgic ethnic group are included Udmurt, Mari, Moldovians. This pair of Mari is dressed in national costumes of Mordovia, which are very similar to traditional Russian costumes, embroidery and color. There are even sandals. However, in the Russian Volga, Russians wore suits of different colors. For example, this woman of the Slavic group dressed in a blue parrot and holiday dress, sundress, scarf and kokoshnik. Another remarkable couple in national costumes is Chuvash. For them, the suit was a kind of passport. Every decoration and embroidery carried its meaning. For example, diamonds on the dress of women meant that women already have children, but national brainchild decoration has it is made from seashells. Incidentally, such ornament was worn by Tatars. Pleases the eye with an extensive collection of jewelers of Kazan Tatars. All decorations are made of precious and semi-precious materials: silver, copper, brass, coral, amethyst and cornelian. Here are not only earrings but necklaces, nekoshniki, koronits and haseti. Study of Volga collections gathered in an ethnographic museum allows to revive folk culture, the traditions, customs, rituals, folk ethnic symbolism.
The Ethnographic Museum of Kazan University is the first humanitarian museum in Volga-Ural region. It was created in 1815 as the Room of Rarities. All exhibits of this museum are original. Most of the exhibits was brought to museum by scientists of Kazan University from expedition across Russia and the world. Also, exhibits were specially bought abroad for illustration of training courses of ethnography. Of course, some of the exhibits were presented. The most part of subjects belong in the 19th century. All exhibits which are presented in Ethnographic Museum of Kazan University are unique. The museum displays various people of Russia. These multi-ethnic people of Volga region, Siberia and Far East. Here a culture of the world also is presented: Africa, South and North America, Australia, East and Asia countries. Exhibits are an important resource for information for students. On the basis of collection of the Ethnographic Museum, students write some scientific articles and works. We will be glad to see you in our museum.
In the next room of the museum, carefully preserved collection of ethnography of the people of the world. Kazan University scientists brought exhibits from all continents of the scientific expeditions and travel, so that geography is vast. Studying and listening to the interesting story of a guide, visitors will learn about the lives of the people of North America. Here are representatives of all its tribes. Judging by ritual costumes, this is a shaman. Tomahawk, which he holds in his hand, says of his high position in society, because such battle axes could have only leaders. Watching the representative of Botakode tribe from South America, it may be noted that the ornaments were an important part of the appearance of the man. To look warlike, they inserted themselves into the ears and jaw wooden wheels. The cult of spirits and shamanism were traditional beliefs in many nations. Religious wooden masks symbolizing the gods of the people of South America, particularly the Tlingit tribe, represented in the museum in large quantities. At least in the museum there are wooden idols which defined and worshipped at most of the tribes in North America and South. All these items were purchased by Kazan University Museum of Imlau for Germany in the 19th century. The collection of the people of Africa, South and North America, special places is taken by a combat and hunting weapon, multiple bows, arrows, spears, harpoons, fishing supplies. Collection sent by Russian astronomer and one of the first discoverers of the southern polar continent, Antarctica, by rector of Kazan University from 1846 until his death in 1855, Ivan Mikhailovich Simonov. Shamanism was distributed in Russia. This is evidenced by the following booth exhibits brought to the university by Professor Katanov from Tuva. Tuvan monks smoked various mixtures to enter into a trance, but also played on the national musical instrument. Here we can see carved wooden chairs of fine workmanship, figuring made of wood and agglometalit and dispatching riders in national dress, shamans, skillfully made stuff. A special place in the museum is taken by Altai shaman costume presented to the university's Professor Osip Kovalevsky. From the Baikal, Mongolian Tibet professor brought in his native university subjects of Buddhism. Here is Buddhist wheel of life telling of endless reincarnation as the need to live according to religious law, and assembled Buddhist altar, part of which Kovalevsky also brought from Mongolia, Tibet and China. Professor gave the museum another significant collection imported from China, where he lived for 13 years. Here we see the male and female costume of pure silk and so blue, the Chinese national dish. There are many examples of shoes ranging from heavy boots, finishing a variety of women's slippers, including the very small. Great interest of visitors was attracted to the section Central Asia, a collection assembled by a student of Kaltsov University in the early 20th century. The collection includes the Uzbek national costume, embroidered skullcaps, manually the old Quran and Muslim holy books. There is a large collection of cookery utensils, smoking accessories, musical instruments, writing items. Each exhibit is a pearl beyond which a long history and their value is increasing every day. All exhibits in our museum are originals. All exhibits are presented in our museums were brought from Umlefo Museum in Hamburg. These exhibits were ordered especially for museum to reflect the specifics, culture and life of people. All mannequins are made with the people of that time exactly anthropological complaints with all parameters, therefore all the physiological proportions were observed. Ethnographic museum is possible not only to enjoy the cultural values but also to use this knowledge in science. It's a laboratory where researchers can study and compare objects of universal culture, concentrated in one place and systematized by geographical area and in order of evolution. The museum was originally created with the function that students studied the collection and wrote a variety of scientific research work, informative purpose, better ones to show than many times to tell. Of course, students learn the various collections, write research papers, term papers. This is very important and necessary not only for our museum but in general for science. Familiarity with the history and culture of not only own people but also the art and culture of other people's expense worldwide man inspires respect for the life and work of ancestors, respect for the culture and history to other people of the world. Visiting the Ethnographic Museum of Kazan Federal University, you can not only be enriched by new knowledge, but also feel the atmosphere of another time, touching subjects so carefully collected and carefully protected for 200 years. This was news of Kazan Federal University. Bye-bye!